Hi folks, welcome to Hanbleceya Ranch. My name is Jason, and along with my wife Jen, we retired early, and in the summer of 2021 we left our family and our friends and we moved here to Maine to start our homestead. In the time that we've been here, we have spent most of our time building infrastructure, from our solar behind me to our water systems, outbuildings, firewood, garden, and all that other good stuff. We've spent quite a bit of time focusing on our infrastructure, because before we start getting into more in-depth animals and start bringing more livestock onto the homestead, we wanted to make sure that we had all of our bases covered, and that's really what we've been doing. Now the solar panels behind me, these things produce 2.58 kilowatts per hour, and we absolutely love it. It gives us more than enough power to run our homestead, and as a matter of fact, this has been in play for over a year now, and we have no issues with it whatsoever. However, there are a few things that we need to do with the other components and the batteries, so let's go take a look at what that is. So a few months ago, I built this 8x12 shed behind me. Now the reason we built it is really to hold our batteries and also our inverter and our charge controller for our solar. Right now, our batteries are being housed outside in a small shed that I built, and I'll show that in just a minute. The inverter and charge controller, that's all in the cabin. Now it has worked for us, but we wanted to get everything in one area and consolidated, and primarily because during the winter time when we've got quite a bit of snow, I had a real hard time managing the batteries and maintaining them. So by building this shed and moving everything in this shed, it'll be really easy for me to come in during the winter time and do all of the maintenance, check on the system, and make sure that the system's working properly. One of the challenges we had last winter, in addition to being able to maintain the batteries, was to keep the batteries at temperature. Now we have Rolls 6-volt 445 amp hour batteries. We have 12 of those, and those batteries need to maintain a temperature at around 77 degrees for optimized performance. Now the little shed that I had was really easy to keep warm. Unfortunately, because of the setup, I just couldn't keep it as warm as it needed to be. This little shed behind me, we're going to be heating this thing with propane this year with a nice wall unit, and we'll show that here shortly. Now an added bonus of building this shed, strategically where I did, was that it acts as a windbreak for our panels. See, we get a lot of wind right down from our road, and that wind will come right behind these panels, and when the panels are in their winter position, which is almost vertical, they become quite a parachute. So to help prevent any damage to the panels, we built this shed just behind them, and we also built a windbreak wall behind that as well. Between the windbreak wall and the shed, so far we've been pretty lucky and fortunate that the panels haven't had much wind coming behind them so far this season. The other thing we did have to do is add some green windbreak fencing here. Unfortunately, the shed just wasn't long enough to extend out far enough to block the wind behind this set of panels here. But with this setup, I think that it's going to be, it's going to work out great. Next summer we'll look into doing something a little bit more permanent, but for this year it should work out pretty well. So when I built this system, one of the things that we wanted to make sure of was that we piped all of the cables from the PV cables from the panels into the cabin. So we currently have a pipe of 1 1/4 inch PVC running from the rack into the cabin. Now, because we're moving the inverter, charge controller, and the batteries into the shed, the PV cables aren't going to be needing to run all the way to the cabin. Matter of fact, it's only going to have to run about 15 feet into the shed. But in order for me to do that and run those cables and have them protected, I've got to dig a trench from the from this pipe here all the way to the shed. So that's what we're going to be working on right now. I'm only going to go about 8 inches, 10 inches. There's nothing going to be driving over here, and to be frankly honest, it's really simply just to protect the wires. Now, the PV cables will run from the rack into the shed, but the output from our inverter is going to actually run from the shed out to this pipe here, and we'll put a T down in the bottom, and then we will run the AC output from this pipe into the cabin. So essentially what we'll be doing is really no different than any of your houses, where you have your AC input coming in from your, typically a pole, running into the house, and that'll go into your breaker box. Well, our system is going to be very similar to that, in that the output of our inverter, which is our AC, will run through these pipes, run into the cabin, and then run directly straight into our breaker box. That way, all of the equipment is isolated and is secure in this in our 8x12 shed, which we are now dubbing the power shed. So we are using 1.25 PVC. It's overkill, I know, but it's what I have, and I had a whole lot of it. So that's why we ran it from the panels into the cabin, and that's also why I'm going to run it from the panels into the shed. All right, well, today is the day. We've been waiting for this for quite some time. Today we are moving these batteries into our power shed. Now, I've got some help today. I've got my friend Dan up here from Massachusetts, and we have a neighbor, Rich, coming over. And so what I'm doing right now is just getting this box ready to get taken apart so that we can get easy access to the batteries. Now, each one of these batteries are 110 pounds. These are 6-volt rolls, 445 amp hour batteries, and we have 12 of them. So it's going to be a very delicate, slow process, but the intent is to get these out successfully, get them loaded up in the power shed, and then I can start focusing on running the appropriate cables and wires, and then moving the charge controller and the inverter. So right now we're just going to get the lid off of this one. Then I got to take the lid off of the Edition and get access to these batteries. I haven't turned the power off yet. I'm going to wait until after I've got everything ready to go, and we've got Rich here, and then we'll go ahead and shut the power off, and we'll do this in one swoop. We're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible, but unfortunately, because of the weight of these batteries, we're definitely going to have to take our time. To help, we're going to be using the tractor, and yeah, let's see how this goes. All right, so after a little bit of time, we finally got all of our batteries moved into the power shed, which is pretty awesome. I have to thank my neighbor and also my friend Dan, who is up visiting, because I couldn't have done it on my own. So the next step, now that the batteries are in here, is we need to mount the inverter and the charge controller up here. Now, we've already gotten them out, and so right now we're just kind of waiting to for Jen to come out, because she's going to give us a hand. And in the meantime, until she gets out here, we have to install our PVC pipe that'll run from the base of the rack and into the shed. All right, so that is my buddy Dan. Say hi.
How you doing?
All right, so he was gracious enough to pull the Romex through the underground pipe. So now that that is done, we're gonna go ahead and finish getting everything wired out here. Jen will come out here, and then we'll get the inverter installed.
You know, because it's only a little bit of stuff, but I can still say, hey, I was involved in that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We need to pull this one. Right. So I'm gonna pull.
Bring it over here so I can help you.
Yeah. Hold on a minute.
Okay.
Oh, you're finally gonna do that?
Hey, finally gonna do that?
You mean
Yes.
you don't want the little jar on top of there?
No,
Get
I
it
don't
for
want
another
the little
winter?
jar. Is that videoing right now?
Yes.
You're gonna cut that out, huh?
Yes.
So
No.
while
All right. So now that we have all of our solar equipment in here, the next step here is really to get our heater running. Now, this is a propane ventless heater. It's very large for this building, but my intent is that it won't be running very much. Now, this building is heavily insulated and is small, so I'm hoping that it'll give us enough. At least it won't burn so much propane. And it'll be much more economical than it was to heat the batteries last year. We'll find out, but before we can even do that, I've got to run 110 volts in here. And so even though I do have the solar system here, I don't want that. I don't want the propane heater running off of the system. And so what we're going to do is we're going to install a closed loop a solar system in here with a battery and a small 400 watt inverter. So I already have all of the equipment, so it's just really a matter of getting everything hooked up. I'm not quite sure yet how or where I'm going to put the battery, but I'm going to figure that out here in a few minutes. And then and then it's just a matter of getting the wires run and getting everything installed. One other thing that we have to do today in this building is we have to add the other two battery management systems. So we have one BMS up right now. I've got two more, so we're going to go ahead and install those as well. And hopefully everything, as far as the power shed, which, by the way, we are now calling the GPS. That is the Groves Power Station. And that is in tribute to a good friend of ours who did happen to visit us for a few days, and he came up with that name, and it just kind of stuck. So we're going to start referring to this building as the GPS, and so let's get to work. All right, folks, so it has been a little while since we got this up and running, and we are now done with this build. We've got all of our batteries in here. We've got our solar charge controller and our inverter in here. Everything's wired and plumbed. We've got our Dynaglow propane heater, and we also have a small 110 volt system in here as well. The 110 volts is primarily for the Dynaglow, and in addition to that, we also have a small fan that I mounted underneath as well to help circulate. The Dynaglow itself is a propane heater, but it does have a blower on the back, so we wanted to put 110 in here. I also wanted 110 in here if I needed anything. This bulb up here actually comes with the Harbor Freight Thunderbolt solar panel setup, and that's the charge controller that we're using, and then the 12 volt light bulb. So everything is running as it should. We're very happy that we got this done. We have seen some mid-20s, late 20s temperatures here in Maine already. This propane heater has kept this building at 70, 75 degrees, and I am still on the same tank that I started. So I think I've got about 2 weeks into this. We are regulating the temperature. We do want to keep it about 70 to 75. But the biggest upgrade that this whole move has done, it has allowed me to see my batteries, do the maintenance on the batteries, check the batteries, inspect the batteries, and kind of see the whole system, you know, at one point or at one time. So super happy that we're done with this. There's nothing really else that we need to do. And so that's it. This project is done. There's nothing else we've got to do except for maintain it and manage it and watch it. And so as far as we're concerned, we're done with this one. All right, well, hey, folks, thanks for sticking around and watching this video. If you haven't hit that like button, please do so. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys on the next video.